All right, I'm going to set this over here. All right, so today is November 9th, 2014, and Bruce McCoy has been willing to talk with us today, just talk a little bit about some stories from his veteran. And I wanted to basically, Veterans Day is this week, and I wanted a chance to honor veterans. So first of all, I just want to say thank you, Bruce. Thank you for your service to our country, and we wanted to just thank you for that. And we know that's a sacrifice, and we want to give thanks to all our veterans this week, especially to remember that.
Yeah,
so
we would love to be thankful.
We do. So thank you for that. So so today I just wanted to talk a little bit. I think one of the things I thought was unique about maybe your family is that it's not just you that's been in the military, but you have generations that have been in the military. Maybe you could tell me a little bit about.
Well, I mean, I think when I was growing up, I was raised on stories from my extended family for what happened. I think kind of started with my great-grandfather. So he was a four-star general when he retired. His name was James Van Fleet. He was served under Patton in World War II, and later on in Greece, and then in Korea, where he worked kind of after General Ridgway. So this was after MacArthur.
Oh, wow.
So I grew up on stories about his life and going down to Florida at his ranch and seeing both kind of the treasures he had kind of acquired over the years, both with hunting in Africa and with things, ornamental inlaid screens and vases and things from Korea. The pistol he had was presented to him by Chiang Kai-shek, and just a gun collection, how he kind of lived his life. He was very much sort of wide open. You had to pry a story out of him. He wasn't naturally a storyteller, but when he did, we were all, myself, my brother, and my cousin, we were all just in rapt attention, just listening to him. And it was very much a patriarch kind of in how the family was led on my mother's side. And then my grandfather passed away really when I was a small child, like when he was about 50s. He was a tank commander, landed on D-Day at McConnell. And then it went on from there. So we had, my great uncle Jim Christian. He was a 2-star. His son, actually James III was a West Point grad. He was Jim Van Fleet. The son of James Van Fleet was lost in Vietnam. He was a Air Force pilot. And then it kind of went down generation to generation. So my dad was a captain in the Signal Corps, my aunt was a colonel. My brother is still in. I was an infantry officer. My brother was an engineer officer, and then later kind of branch transferred to civil affairs. So he was in Iraq and Afghanistan, and so there's sort of a family history sense of a calling to serve, and I think it's one part service, one part kind of patriot. We believe in the foundations of our country. We believe that it was not cheap or easy to start our kind of democratic society, and that it takes a lot of work. And so I think we've always believed that we should be a part of that. And then on the other side of my dad's family is also a lot of pastors. My grandfather was a pastor. He was a deep bass voice. I still remember the voice. He was a tall man, Scott. And so I kind of always consider myself sort of a descendant of both of those. So I'm definitely believe that it's what Christ did for us that teaches us the model of service. and that we're here first to do things for others and second to do things for ourselves. But at a sense, also a sense on the military side of it, I think we tend to be fearful sometimes, and to think that of all the negative outcomes, but we don't just step forward and kind of bridge the gap.
Right.
So I kind of taken stuff from both of those sides of my family.
So more about like your service. How long were you part of the infantry?
Total of 13 years active in reserves. I did part of my service was in the Virginia Army National Guard with the 29th Division, and I was from a brand new. Well, actually, before that, I was a cadet when I was in college, and second lieutenant. So infantry platoon leader, scout platoon leader, company executive officer, company commander. And then I served also with the Department of Military Affairs because I'm also an engineer by trade.
Mm-hmm.
But and then active duty, I was with the 82nd Airborne, the 505th. We were stationed as peacekeepers over in Egypt.
Okay.
So I got to learn a little bit about different cultures. I also got to explore the kind of roots of Christianity with not just going around Israel, but Egypt and Mount Sinai and the Nile River. And so, I think that sense of adventure has always been a part of me. Probably always will.
Yeah. Sounds like you have the genes. It's in the genes for sure too. So.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious because did your father? I mean, obviously you were raised with that kind of background and this, legacy. Did you ever feel like your dad pushed that along, like encouraged you to do it, or it just kind of happened and he didn't object to you being in the military, or was he?
Well, I think my dad, I wanted to join the Army right out of high school.
Okay.
My dad put his foot down a little bit, and he said, hey, son, I think you need to go to college. And he's probably right. He often is. But I think he's also more inclined to counsel wisdom and safety. And I think that both my brother and I have been a little bit of a challenge for him in that because, as a parent, you want the best for your kids and you want to protect them, you want to nurture them. And then when they're older and then they start doing things that are a little bit more out of the wild side, then, you got to struggle with that. And
sure.
so it's the same thing with wishing, for my kids, do what I want them to be missionaries over in another country, or do I want them to, be in an environment that could be dangerous, and it's hard. I want them to live their life as God calls them, and I want to support that, but I still have my
your natural
tendency to want to protect them too.
Sure.
I think my dad wrestled with that a little bit, and also my mom when I was in high school. Just starting my junior year, just got my driver's license. She passed away suddenly, so that was a little bit of an abrupt growing up period, I think, for my brother and I.
Did your dad? Has he ever, verbally said that he's proud of you for being part of the military, or is it kind of just understood? I don't know what your relationship is with your dad.
Well, I mean, I think very, open, but I think I'm probably more prone to seek out a very direct conversation of my dad, my brother, and I. I'm probably more forward. But yeah, there's certain times when I know that he is reflective and he's open about telling me the things that he's proud about that we've done, and open about also talking about the types of things that he feels called to do himself. And so he's I guess he's probably about 72 now.
Huh?
But he's very much active in trying to make sure that his family is okay. So down to my step siblings or the grandkids or whatever. So he's always going to be involved. And there's a lot about him I admire, and it's not necessarily the notable action,
Right.
It's the constancy of his attentions and his affections and what he thinks is important. So he's very consistent.
Now, does he live nearby?
Yeah, he lives nearby.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I think he's respectful of the fact that, Katie and I have our own family in the same sense that he's always ready to come over whenever we call and ask him. And so it's a good balance.
Yeah, that's neat. And I mean, I guess if there's probably lots of different things, but is there one thing that you're most proud of your dad about, or one of many things that you're proud of your dad about?
Well, yeah. I would say one of the things is he traveled a lot working when I was growing up. So he would go away on a Monday, come back on a Friday. But he never complained. He was always very faithful about what he had to do. And sometimes I suspect there's a regret at some points of some things that he feels like he might have missed, because he's commented a couple times where my mom was she was a little bit of a tiger mom, and that she didn't take any crap from us or anybody, and would square things away when we were misbehaving. He was consistent and faithful, and I think that was never prone to drinking or excess or anything. He was a very good role model as a father. Cared about us, and a lot of times he'd take us with him. So we would spend the summer living in California while he was doing an audit, and also got me to sort of grow outside of just what Richmond Moorview would look like. So I got to see Canada or Mexico or other places, and understanding the world was a lot larger than just a small segment that I know. And that's something that I've tried to impress upon my kids, as we've taken them many places in different countries and did many mission trips and things with them. We're trying to not just talk about the gospel to them, but also to live it, and to live it interactively, so they can see kind of the good and the bad, and we can kind of help interpret that.
So, I guess one other question, just last question about your dad is what's something about your dad that people might not know about him? Could be anything. Could be or it could be a funny thing. It could be
Well, I think my dad is a whole lot more opinionated than I think now than when I knew before.
Okay.
Growing up, there's a little bit of Clint Eastwood in him that. Sometimes it's like early Clint Eastwood, so more of the the good, the bad, and the ugly. And sometimes it's later Clint Eastwood, so like Gran Torino. And but there's a gruffness and a caring both, and you kind of saw that in Clint Eastwood's character in Gran Torino, where he's very, very abrupt, and it's like, hey, you got to live with this kind of thing. But then there's also willing to get invested and willing to do what he's got to do to kind of rescue a situation. So I think that's very much a part of my dad's personality. The other thing that I think is he's got a little bit of Harrison Ford in him too.
Okay.
Not just the Raiders of the Lost Ark, but there's kind of that little bit of a scoundrel in him that you got from the Indiana Jones character. More Indiana Jones, I say, than Han Solo in Star Wars, but where the kind of sort of off-colored humor, and not like anything raunchy, just appreciates the cold irony of the situation. There's a little bit of edge to it, but funny thing is, I didn't think that I was like that early on, but as I get older, I find that I'm more appreciative of that humor too.
Yeah, you can kind of see that carries on in you, and maybe that carries on in your kids as well. A lot of traits.
I think that's very true. I think that's sort of somewhat of God's justice, a sense of humor that our kids are blessed with, a lot of our traits, and I think there's a little bit of just desserts in that.
Yep. Well, neat. Well, I wanted to thank you for sharing a little bit about you, and also just about your family. And again, I wanted to thank you for your service and your family service, and for your sacrifice. And
we all serve and sacrifice in different ways. It's not just people in the military, but I think it's one of the virtues of our country is that we are sort of a melting pot of people from different places and different environments, and there are many, many ways that we all sacrifice for freedom, for the freedoms that we enjoy. I think when we get to a point where we aren't willing to sacrifice, that's when we're going to find we're going to lose our identity as a nation, and we're going to be less.
Yeah,
so
right.
I think that if we can teach our kids well, then I think we can continue kind of this is it the great experiment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
That's my pleasure.
Right. Thanks.